Welcome back to the United Nations, Mr. President. Your hopes for the conference, sir?
President Mugabe, then 91, arriving for a high-level conference on Ebola as African Union chair, a familiar walk through the UN delegates' entrance, where he's been a regular feature for the better part of his tenure in high office. Mugabe, as Prime Minister, came to officially take up Zimbabwe's seat as the newest member of the United Nations in 1980. And while he would enjoy high acclaim for decades after Zimbabwe's liberation from minority rule, that would all begin to fall apart when political turmoil, weak economic growth, and violent land invasions began chipping away at his international goodwill, resulting in targeted sanctions being imposed by both the United States and the European Union in 2002. Fighting sanctions would become a rallying cry every time he visited the UN.
My country, Zimbabwe, is the innocent victim of their spiteful sanctions imposed by the United States and other Western powers. And these countries for some 16 years now have maintained the sanctions on us.
This veteran Associated Press journalist, who has covered the UN since 1998, has interviewed President Mugabe several times.
What struck me about him is what struck me about a lot of leaders that you see on the stage at the United Nations, is his extreme self-confidence and belief.
Countries like the United States often boycotted or walked out during a speech by Zimbabwe's president.
Shame, 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 we say to the United States of America. Shame, 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 we say to Britain and its allies, who have continued to impose sanctions, illegal sanctions upon our people. Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans, so are its ample resources.
While protests near the UN, most recently this one in September last year, have become features when Mugabe is in town.
In a 2008 interview that I did, he was then talking about power sharing and a power sharing government, and saying he saw no obstacles and expressed hope that it would lead the West to ease economic sanctions, which he blamed for devastating the country's economy. And at that time, he was 84 years old. He'd been in power for decades, and yet he was still certainly charming to me.
Sources have told us that former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had a cordial but frosty relationship with Zimbabwe's president, who as outgoing chair of the African Union in 2016 ripped into the former Secretary General over the lack of UN reforms, a matter we raised with the SG spokesperson in New York.
Secretary General is not unused to being criticized and singled out. It comes with the territory, and he was, I think, very honored to be able to speak at this AU session, which, as he said, for him was a very emotional moment, as it was the last, his last one as Secretary General.
Could you characterize his relationship with Robert Mugabe?
No.
And despite the international political pressure, President Mugabe refused to buckle, with age and health now becoming major obstacles to his continued vigor.
Mugabe said, quote, "They are waiting for a day when this man, this evil man called Robert Mugabe, is no longer in control. And I don't know when that day is coming." So I asked, "You have no thoughts of resigning?" "No, or a thought of dying," Mugabe chuckled.
since 1980, President Mugabe is the world's oldest living leader and is expected to defy the odds when he visits here again in September. Sherman Brycepease, SABC News, New York.